Scene fades in with tense music, dark tones, and an image of Natasha Ryan as a child. Imagine losing a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Days pass, weeks turn into months, and then years. Natasha Ryan's family lived with this pain for 5 long years, believing she was dead. But Natasha wasn't gone. She was hiding in plain sight. This is her story, one of mystery, deception, and a secret life hidden in the shadows. In 1998, suburban neighborhood in Rockhampton, Queensland, footage of a teenage girl, Natasha, smiling and hanging out with friends. In 1998, 14-year-old Natasha Ryan seemed like any other teenager. She went to school, had friends, and had a family who loved her. But on one ordinary day, everything changed. Natasha vanished without a trace, leaving behind a family desperate for answers. Natasha's mother reporting her missing, with tears in her eyes. Her mother reported her missing to the police, but the days that followed brought no leads. Search teams were sent out. Police scoured the area, and posters of Natasha's face were plastered everywhere, yet there was no sign of her. Police and community search efforts, interviews with worried family members, newspaper headline, Rockhampton murders shocked the town. Natasha's disappearance came at a time of terror in Rockhampton. Several young women had been reported missing, and the town was living in fear. The police were investigating these disappearances, fearing the worst. Police interviews, showing serial killer Leonard Fraser. Ominous music. During the investigation, the name Leonard Fraser came up. Fraser, a convicted rapist and murderer, was under suspicion. In 2001, 3 years after Natasha disappeared, Fraser was charged with the murders of several women in the area. One of those women was Natasha Ryan. Her family was devastated. Without a body, they were left to grieve without closure. A memorial was held, and the community mourned her loss. Music changes tone. Eerie, mysterious. Footage shows a rundown house in Rockhampton, but what no one knew was that Natasha Ryan was still alive. For 5 years, she lived in hiding. Just a few kilometers away from her family, Natasha stayed hidden in a small house with her boyfriend, Scott Black, who was 7 years older than her. A reenactment of Natasha hiding in closets, her living conditions, sneaking around the house. Natasha lived in the shadows, spending most of her time in closets and cupboards to avoid being seen. Her life was restricted. She couldn't go outside, she couldn't talk to her friends, and she couldn't let her family know she was alive. But why? Why would a young girl choose to hide instead of returning home? Camera zooms in on a quiet house, showing Natasha staring out the window from behind curtains. The reasons remain unclear. Some believe Natasha felt trapped, emotionally manipulated by Scott. Others think she was simply afraid of what would happen if she returned home. Whatever the reason, Natasha kept her secret for years. 2003 courtrooms, news headlines, and Leonard Fraser in trial. In 2003, Fraser was on trial for the murders of several women, including Natasha Ryan. The courtroom was ready to hear the final testimony. That's when a bombshell was dropped. An anonymous tip led the police to Scott Black's house, where they found Natasha Ryan, alive. Reenactment of police raiding the house and finding Natasha. The world was in shock. How could a girl who had been presumed dead for years be hiding just kilometers from her home? How could her family grieve for her, hold a funeral for her, while she lived just out of reach? Reporters outside the courtroom, Natasha being brought in by police. Natasha was brought in for questioning, and the truth finally began to unravel. Her family, who had suffered for so long, were speechless. Her mother, who had mourned her, was now faced with a daughter she had thought she'd lost forever. After her discovery, Natasha and Scott Black faced the legal consequences of their actions. Scott was charged with perjury and obstructing the course of justice. The media frenzy surrounding the case was intense, and people around the country debated why Natasha had done what she did, felt sorry for Natasha, believing she was manipulated by Scott. Others were angry, thinking about the pain her family went through and the resources wasted on searching for her. But at the center of it all was a girl who had lived a secret life for 5 years, and no one knew why. Natasha Ryan leads a quiet life, away from the spotlight. After the media storm settled, she rebuilt her life, married Scott Black, and even had children, but the question still lingers. Why did she do it? Was she a victim, or was she in control the whole time? The case of Natasha Ryan will always be remembered as one of the most bizarre in Australian history. A girl who was thought to be dead, a family who mourned her, and a secret that took 5 years to be uncovered. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, and sometimes the answers we seek are hidden, just like Natasha was. For 5 long years she stayed in the shadows, while the world believed she was gone. Natasha Ryan, the girl who hid, remains one of the most mysterious cases in Australian true crime history. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as captivating as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more true crime stories.